Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside the Americas. I'm Laura Cellier. Coming up in the programme. Secrecy surrounding the source of lethal chemicals means a stay of execution for 2 convicted murderers in the United States. Plus fresh violence in Venezuela as the country marks President Maduro's first rocky year in office. And we travel to Mexico to meet the young members of an indigenous community who have wowed the international world of basketball. But we begin this week in the US state of Oklahoma, where the executions of 2 convicted murderers have been delayed. A court ruled that the state must first prove the source of the drugs used in lethal injections. US states have been finding it increasingly difficult to obtain these substances after a ban by European drug firms.
In 1998, Dennis McGuire was sentenced to death for the rape and murder of a pregnant woman. His execution took place in January of this year, death by lethal injection. Yet on that day, things didn't go as planned.
Mr. McGuire appeared to be gasping for air. I don't know if it was air hunger or exactly what it was, but all I'm going to tell you is a description. He gasped deeply. It was kind of a rattling, guttural sound.
The 25 minutes of agony he endured were all because of a new drug cocktail that the state of Ohio had used in the injection, a mix of sedatives and painkillers that had not yet been tested. In the wake of this case, a series of executions across the US have been postponed, including those of 2 death row inmates in Oklahoma. Courts decreed a stay of execution after lawyers argued that a lethal injection would contravene the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel or unusual punishments. This stems from the absence of one chemical component within the injection. The American lab where it was manufactured ceased production, and European labs have stopped supplying it under pressure from the anti-death penalty lobbyists. Since then, authorities have tried to find a viable substitution.
First they tried to get suppliers in India, in China, but the pharmaceutical laboratories weren't what you might call strictly regulated. Then they said, OK, we'll use veterinarians' drugs. But that wasn't a great idea either in terms of US legislation. Norms apply to humans. Shortly after that, they turned to private pharmacies. You find these sorts of companies in the States, they're not necessarily recognised. We know that in the past, there have been serious problems with the qualities of these drugs, often either too strong or too weak.
A situation that's nudged some states towards alternative methods. Authorities in Missouri are considering bringing back the electric chair, the gas chambers, or even hanging. 3,088 US inmates are currently on death row across the 32 states in which the death penalty is legal.
Well, we've got a roundup now of some of the other top stories from across the United States this week, including the incredible tale of a 15-year-old boy who survived a 5.5-hour flight inside the wheel well of a plane. Take a look.
A death-defying journey. A 15-year-old stowaway miraculously survived a 5-hour flight over the Pacific, hidden in the wheel well of a passenger jet. The Hawaiian Airlines flight was traveling from San Jose, California to Maui in Hawaii. Oxygen was scarce and temperatures as low as -60 degrees as the plane reached 38,000 feet.
Within a few minutes up at that altitude, the person would pass out, and usually they would not survive for hours on end up there. So it just boggles the mind.
There are varying reports as to why the teenager ran away, but as many stowaways are often illegal immigrants, his story was met with suspicion and scrutiny. A well-intentioned Twitter campaign that backfired spectacularly. The New York Police Department asked Twitter users to post their photos with police officers using the hashtag #MyNYPD. But the request was swiftly met with thousands of images allegedly showing police brutality. Despite the social media backlash, an NYPD spokeswoman said the PR stunt provided an opportunity for an uncensored exchange and that the open dialogue was good for the city. He was known for his ferocious punching power in the ring. Reuben Carter, nicknamed Hurricane, died of cancer on Sunday at age 76. The prizefighter was jailed in 1967 after being wrongly convicted of a triple murder. and only cleared 19 years later. After leaving prison, Carter emerged as an international symbol of racial injustice.
We are limited on this earth simply by our own imagination. Whatever we can believe, man, there's nothing that we can't do, nothing.
In 1999, his story got the Hollywood treatment and was made into an Oscar-nominated film starring Denzel Washington.
One thing I could do and the only thing.
He also inspired Bob Dylan to write the classic tune Hurricane.
Here comes the story of the hurricane.
There was fresh violence in Venezuela this week, with anti-government protesters hurling petrol bombs as police responded with tear gas. President Nicolas Maduro has had a rocky 12 months in power, and as the opposition vents its fury on the streets, the question is, are they organised enough to take him on politically? Olivia Salazar-Winspear explains.
It was 1 year ago that the man who called himself the son of Hugo Chavez came to power. Nicolas Maduro pledged to continue with the work of his predecessor.
I swear to the people of Venezuela. I swear to the eternal memory of the Supreme Commander Hugo Chavez that I will abide by and uphold the Constitution and laws of the Republic.
12 months on, the streets of Venezuela are filled with anti-government demos. On Easter Sunday, protesters were even burning an effigy of the president. In addition to regular social unrest and even bouts of violence, the status quo has been blighted by diplomatic spats with the US, shortages of basic food products and soaring inflation during the post-Chavez period. Maduro has pointed the finger at opposition groups for many of Venezuela's woes. Yet analysts disagree. Venezuela's opposition has been weakened over the last year. Leopoldo Lopez, the charismatic centrist party leader, who's long called for Maduro's resignation, has been in prison since February. His incarceration came after an opposition mayor was arrested and a rival Congress member was stripped of parliamentary privileges. With the main opposition factions fragmented, many believe that Maduro's challengers are poorly equipped to contest the president's grip on power.
The Chavez regime and model was not exactly one that guaranteed full democracy, but this year Maduro didn't even maintain a climate of coexistence, a climate that would set up the conditions for dialogue.
In recent weeks, Maduro's camp has been in talks with opposition representatives, with mediation from the Vatican and the Union of South American Nations, an offer taken up by presidential runner-up Enrique Capriles, leader of Venezuela's centre-right Justice First party. Yet thus far negotiations have been rocky, with sticking points on both sides, prompting pessimism from many about the potential outcome of these talks.
There were heartfelt tributes this week to one of Latin America's greatest literary giants. Colombian-born Gabriel García Márquez died at the age of 87 in his adopted Mexico. There, thousands filed past his ashes to pay their respects, and later it was the turn of Colombia, with President Juan Manuel Santos leading a ceremony in Bogotá to honour the writer. García Márquez won the Nobel Prize for Literature and was best known for his masterpiece, 100 Years of Solitude. Well, we end this week in Mexico, where a group of children from the indigenous Triqui community has stunned the world of basketball. They hail from one of the country's most isolated and impoverished regions, yet their dedication to the sport means they are now the junior champions of the world. Our team in Oaxaca have been to find out the secret of their success.
Here, only Triqui, the kids' first language, is spoken. They now practice on a brand new court, most of them wearing the first pair of sneakers they ever owned. But they were all born in extreme poverty in the mountains in southern Mexico. Guillermo is one of the audacious coaches that believed in these kids enough to make them the junior world champions last November.
We teach them to never give up. They often arrive believing they're nobody, that they can do nothing. But we tell them that it doesn't matter where they come from and how and where they live. What's important is what they have in their minds and what they want to do.
3 years of daily training and strict rules. Everybody has to help with household chores, get good grades at school, and read 1 book every 15 days. For punishment, they can't train. These 26 kids now share a modest home. There are 2 kids per bed and they have no personal effects, but they have enough to eat, they go to school, and they have learned all about their careers.
I want to train hard to become a professional NBA player, and then an attorney at law.
These 3 years have taken them further than they had ever dreamed. Trips to Argentina, the United States, and best of all, a friendly match with the Giants from the Spurs.
It's always been a dream for us to get to know these idols, these fantastic players we could only see on the TV. We love Tim Duncan and Tony Parker, you know, the French player.
The coaches also recruited a team of girls in Triqui villages. But this task was harder. They had to go against a very conservative culture.
My parents didn't want to let me play. In our villages, they're very protective of girls. They don't let us go to parties, for example. And they told me that if I trained, I wouldn't be able to have children.
Guillermo has to fight against these beliefs every time he returns to the Triqui region to unearth new talent. It will take the coaches an 8-hour drive to reach the village of Rastrojo, where they are expected as heroes. Girls or boys, with shoes or barefoot, these kids know that this recruitment match may be the chance of a lifetime. Guillermo carefully scrutinizes each player.
We're monitoring that kid over there. He's very small, but he runs fast and isn't afraid of getting into the fray.
Javier has got Guillermo's eye. He will leave soon to train with a champion team. Perhaps it is the beginning of a new life for the young player.
Well, that's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. Many thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.